What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today I bring you big news from the world of the Transformers trading card game. You see, for the second time ever, the lovely folks at Transformers TCG Towers have gone and banned a card from competitive play. Now, I'm not quite as quick on the ball as I usually would be with this. You see, the ban came down on Thursday evening, when I was in London attending the opening of the Pokemon Centre. It was awesome, I loved it, but I do apologise because, well, I'm usually, usually more on the ball than this, so I apologise, but we're here now. So press the advantage then. Why has it gone and been banned? Well, if we take a step back and have a look at the card, it looks, on the face of it, like a fantastically powerful card. And pretty much everything about the card is good. It's got an orange icon, so when you flip it, you get to do extra damage. When you play it, one of your Autobots gets +2 attack. When you play it, one of your opponent's Decepticons gets -2 defense until end of turn. And it's got a green icon. And I think the green icon, for me at least, is what really breaks this card. Because you see, green icon means that at the end of the battle, you can swap a card that you flipped with a green icon for a card that's in your hand, which means you can get it very reliably. General rule of the Transformers card game is, during your turn you draw a card, you attack, you flip 2 cards, you defend, you flip 2 cards. Now, you can get bold to flip more cards while attacking, tough to flip more cards while defending. You can use stuff like Cliff Jumper or Pep Talk to draw more cards. But generally speaking, you're far more likely to flip a card when attacking or defending than you are to actually draw it in any given game. Now, of course, what we tend to do here is we play free copies of cards we really like to increase our chances, but there's still no guarantee that we're going to draw it, and even if we do, we're probably drawing, say, 1 or 2 of them. We're rarely drawing all 3. But then we end up with something with an orange icon and everything changes. Now, all of a sudden, we can find that card whenever we gosh darn well like it, so it becomes a significantly better card. But if you're playing Autobots and you're playing against Decepticons, this essentially turns into a +4 attack, just so long as the character in question has 2 defense or higher. If they have no defense, you really just get +2 attack. 1 defense, you really get +3. And to put this into context with the other kind of cards, I mean, back in Wave 1, we had some fairly standard kind of cards, like Leap into Battle, and Leap into Battle gave us +3 attack. Or Grenade Launcher that gave us +4 attack, however, it was an upgrade and it fell off at the end of your turn, or when you attacked. If you had 2 attacks in a turn, it actually fell off after the first one. So this is quite a bit better than the alternatives, and it has an orange icon, and it's only for Autobots, and all of this kind of bundles us up into a big pile of, yeah, that's a really good card. But why is it such a good card that it ends up being banned? Well, one of the interesting things is, we can look at a parallel here, because generally speaking, when we get cards that are faction specific, they come in pairs. So probably the most obvious ones we had were, again, back in Wave 2, where we had the blasters. We had Noble's Blaster and Scoundrel's Blaster. Well, they were pretty good cards, but if we look at them, they're about as good as each other. So Scoundrel's Blaster has a blue and a green. You can only put it on Decepticons. It gives you +2 attack, and if you're attacking an Autobot, you get PS2. Whereas Noble's Blaster has a blue and a green, gives you +2 attack, can only be put on Autobots, and when you're attacking a Decepticon, it gets PS2. Yet they're literally exactly the same. So there's no real inherent advantage coming. But the parallel for Press the Advantage was Bad Attitude. A card which actually has no battle icons, which is interesting because generally speaking, cards with no battle icons are really kind of over the top overpowered. As an example, look at something like I Still Function, which I think it's fair to say has proven to be one of the best cards in the game, just for bringing a character back for one turn. It has no battle icons. That kind of makes sense. So Bad Attitude has no battle icons. How good is it? If you began the game with only Decepticon characters, repair 1 damage from each of your characters, then do 1 damage to each Autobot. And actually, that's kind of cool. It's basically like a repair bay to repair 1 damage from each of your characters, while also bringing in an armed hovercraft, for instance, where you do 1 damage to each enemy, which is kind of cool. Although, to be fair, it wouldn't actually do 1 damage to everything. It would only do 1 damage to each of your opponent's Autobots. If they had a mixed team, it wouldn't do all of them. So this was a powerful one, but it's not seen a huge amount of play. It's been sideboarded in a little bit, but the problem with Bad Attitude is you've got to be really confident, because the worst case scenario with Bad Attitude is repair 1 damage from each of your characters. That's the worst thing that can happen. Your opponent isn't playing any Autobots, there's no one to do damage to, you repair 1 from all of yours. Except that's not actually the worst case scenario, because it has no battle icons. You could easily keep flipping it and never actually draw into it, and so that's a very bad thing. What's the worst case scenario with Press the Advantage? Well, the worst case scenario is legitimately +2 attack. Because you're going to be playing Autobots if you're playing it. With the green icon, you can guarantee you're going to have access to it during the game. So if your opponent's not playing any Decepticons or they have no defense, you're getting +2 attack, and that is the worst case scenario. And to be fair, that's if you draw into it. If you flip it, you get +1 attack, and then at the end of the battle, you get to draw it back again. That's kind of cool. So I am all in favour of Press the Advantage, but it's a phenomenal card. Bad Attitude is good, but you don't want to play it with no icons for fear of it being useless. You certainly don't want a card that does nothing with no icon till you end up sideboarding it, whereas Press the Advantage is always going to be a good card if you're playing Autobots. But as the Transformers peeps have pointed out, if you look at the top decks from recent tournaments, it is very, very heavy on the Autobots. And really, when we look at Decepticon teams, now Flame War sees a little bit of play as a nice cheap 5-cost character. But in terms of actual teams, we tend to see Scrapnel leading the Insecticons. Insecticons are pretty good. And we tend to play Major Shockwave. And that's about it. That's basically what we get. They are what we tend to see doing well at big tournaments. Well, do we really want a situation where we've got Autobots versus Decepticons, but everyone is just playing Autobots because they're too good? And the thing is, and we should be very thankful to the designers for this, they talked to the players. Why are you not playing more Decepticon decks? And evidently the number one reason, and if you've been following any online Transformers community, you'll have heard this as well, Press the Advantage is too good. It is a phenomenally powerful card, which you are going to draw into, which just makes your characters better. Because, what, you play Leap into Battle? Great, you get +3 attack. But you don't ever get the essential +4. It doesn't have a green icon, so you can guarantee that you actually get it into your hand. And it has a blue icon, so it doesn't help you if you flip it while attacking. Because that's the other thing about Press the Advantage. You want to be playing this in a more aggressive deck a lot of the time, and it gives you the extra attack on the orange icon. Which means that you can't just go, we'll play Leap into Battle instead. It's not a fair parallel. And that's why Press the Advantage had to go. It was just too gosh darn good. It was keeping Decepticon decks down. Now, one of my questions as soon as I saw the ban was, well, hang on a second, what about mercenaries? We know that with War for Cybertron Siege 2 coming in, we are seeing the entrance of a new faction. That new faction being mercenaries, like Nightbird, for instance, the new promo. And Press the Advantage doesn't work so well. It just gives you +2 attack. because it's not a Decepticon. And that's a fair point. But the question is, how much play are mercenaries really going to see? Can we rely on that? I would argue no. So were there any other options? What other options were there? Well, what you could do is limit it to 1 per deck, but it's got a green icon. Now, if it didn't have a green icon and you limited it to 1 per deck, then you would really be bringing in a legitimate chance of not seeing it during the game, and that might fix it, but you've got the green icon. So, of course, there's another option here. Why don't we errata it? Why don't we just remove the green icon? But no! Because the problem with doing that, and we've seen this in other card games, new players come in, and all of a sudden they're playing with a card that does something different to what it says. That is hyper confusing for new players. Imagine you're new to the game, you built this deck, you're really proud of it, you rock up to a tournament, and straight away somebody turns around and goes, yeah, that's not how that card works, and your deck is nowhere near as good. That's not cool. So why not just print a Decepticon version of this? I would argue that restricts deck building even more. Because now, if you're a Decepticon, you've got to play Decepticon Press the Advantage. If you're a Mercenary, you've got to play Mercenary Press the Advantage. And you just end up in this weird situation where you've just got these really powerful cards, and then you're pushing other cards out that are not really viable anymore. And it just gets kind of a little bit silly. And maybe Mercenaries would have fixed the problem. But if you don't do anything, you've really got to be confident the Mercenaries are going to start changing the way we play. And I like some of the Mercenaries, but I don't think they're going to make that much of an impact, at least not in War for Cybertron Siege 2, and that's where we're heading into. So I think we have to ban it. I agree with a ban. At the end of the day, right, our options were make it read different to how it looked, which isn't good. I say we, I mean Transformers. Ban it outright, or cross your fingers that it would get better. But the problem is, we are in a format, we've seen the reality, and the reality is Decepticons are significantly worse, and this card is a #1 reason. So we had to get rid of it. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that's the ban, that's why it happened, and that's why, as sad as it is, I'm inclined to agree with it. But I'd like to know what you think, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, and do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, etc. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.